Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. She didn't flinch when I walked into the diner. Her eyes stayed glued to her phone, as if she hadn't texted me an hour ago asking to meet and talk. She sat there in her favorite beige coat, sipping coffee like it was just another Tuesday. The same coat she wore the night she first said she loved me. I sat down. No hug. No greeting. She looked up, finally, and said 5 words that tasted like metal. You should read these carefully. She pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the table. Divorce papers. No discussion. No apology. No, let's try to fix it. Just the final scene of a play I didn't know we were finishing. I didn't even open them. I stared at her hand, the one that once held mine during thunderstorms and funerals. Now it just tapped the table impatiently like I was late signing for a delivery. I pushed the folder back. Calm. Quiet. Almost bored. Then I guess I'm free. She blinked. Like she couldn't process it. Like the role she had prepared for. The tearful goodbye, my desperate pleading, had just been cancelled. I'm sorry it had to end like this, she said flatly, reaching for her coat. But I wasn't. Not anymore. Because 2 nights ago I found out everything. The hotel receipts. The voice memo she accidentally left running in the car. The emails. The photos. The way she called him my escape while still sharing a bed with me. I didn't confront her then. I wanted this moment. I wanted her to think she had the power. That she was the one leaving me. But I'd already left. Long before she slid those papers across the table. Now it's been a month. A single month of silence. And this morning, she showed up at my door. Her eyes were puffy. Her hair was a mess. Her voice, shaking. I needed to see who's here now. Who took my place. I told her to wait. Because the person inside was about to say everything I never could. This story's just getting started. The knock came at exactly 8:02 a.m. I knew it was her before I even looked through the peephole. I could feel it. That odd twist in my stomach. The way the air shifted, heavy and expectant. Darcy never liked mornings. So the fact she showed up this early already screamed desperation. I didn't open the door right away. I stood there, letting her wait, letting her wonder if I'd even answer. After 30 seconds, I turned the knob and pulled it open slowly. She looked smaller than I remembered, less polished, like regret had stolen her sleep. Her mascara was uneven, her lips chapped, her hair pulled into a careless bun. But her eyes? They were scanning everything behind me. Hi, she said, her voice a mix of nervous and forced cheer. I was in the area and thought maybe we could talk. I didn't say anything, just stepped aside, letting her in without a word. Let her soak in the walls that weren't hers anymore. The scent of fresh coffee, the soft hum of morning music coming from the other room. Her heels clicked nervously against the hardwood as she stepped inside. She looked around like a stranger in her own memories, searching for familiarity and finding none. Her gaze lingered on the couch, the one we used to nap on during lazy Sundays, now covered in a blanket she'd never seen before. You redecorated, she muttered, more to herself than to me. And then it happened. A soft voice floated in from the kitchen. Eli, did you want almond milk in your coffee or just cream? Darcy froze. Her head snapped toward the sound. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. A moment later, Mia appeared. Mia, the woman who walked into my life 2 weeks after Darcy walked out of it. Not in some rebound, rushed romance way, but in the kind of slow, accidental way that feels too real to plan. She was kind. She didn't ask too many questions. She let me sit in silence when I needed it and reminded me that silence could be peaceful, not punishing. Mia stepped out, holding 2 mugs, wearing one of my flannels. Her hair was still damp from a shower, her smile warm but confused as she caught Darcy standing like a statue near the living room. Oh, Mia said softly. I didn't realize you had company. Darcy's voice came out cracked. Who is she? I answered flatly without apology. This is Mia. She lives here now. The silence that followed could have snapped glass. Darcy looked at me like I had slapped her. Her mouth opened, then shut. Her hands clenched, then relaxed. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. I didn't think you'd move on this fast. I gave a bitter chuckle. You didn't think at all. That was kind of the problem. She winced. I just needed some space. I didn't expect that I'd heal. I cut in. That I'd stop waiting at the door like a dog hoping you'd come back? I could see it, the moment the realization hit her that she wasn't here to fix anything. She was here to see if I was broken. And I wasn't. But what she said next, that was the twist I never saw coming. She took a step forward, her eyes now glassy. I made a mistake, Eli. I want to come home. Mia stood there silently, eyes on me, waiting. And me? I didn't say a word. Because Darcy wasn't ready for the truth. Not yet. Darcy stood in the middle of my apartment like a ghost who wandered into someone else's life, hoping to reclaim it with nothing but nostalgia and a trembling voice. She said she wanted to come home. She said she made a mistake. Her bottom lip quivered slightly, probably expecting me to melt at the sight of her vulnerability, the same way I always used to. But this time I didn't flinch. I didn't offer her a seat. I didn't even offer her coffee. I just leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, letting the silence press into her like a weight she hadn't prepared to carry. She tried again. I wasn't thinking clearly, Eli. Everything was moving so fast. I felt, I don't know, trapped, lost. I thought I needed space to breathe, but I was wrong. She paused, searching my face for a crack, a reaction, anything. I didn't realize what I had until I walked away from it. I nodded slowly, still saying nothing. Behind me, Mia had stepped back into the kitchen, giving us space but not too far. She didn't slam drawers or stomp around. She wasn't making a scene. She was just present. And her quiet presence was louder than anything Darcy had said. Darcy took a shaky breath. I haven't even spoken to him in weeks. He wasn't what I thought. It was stupid. A fantasy. I was confused. There it was, the excuse. The shifting of blame from betrayal to confusion. As if stumbling into someone else's arms could be chalked up to poor judgment like a bad haircut or a missed appointment. I still didn't speak. I wanted her to keep talking, to keep unraveling. And she did. I came back because I miss you. I miss us. The way you used to laugh at your own jokes before even finishing them. The way you always got nervous ordering food on the phone. Her eyes glistened now. I remember your handwriting. I remember the way you held me when my dad passed. I thought I could replace those things. I really did. But I was wrong. So wrong. I finally exhaled, my voice calm. Do you miss me? Or do you just hate being replaced? That hit harder than I expected. She blinked fast, stunned. What? You had your exit plan mapped out before I even knew we were ending. You wanted the freedom, Darcy. You didn't just walk away, you ran. And now that the fantasy turned out to be a dumpster fire, you're here hoping I'm still sitting in the ashes. She looked stunned, like I'd slapped her with words she hadn't rehearsed for. I didn't think you'd move on so fast, she said again, as if that was a valid argument. I didn't think she'd be living here. I tilted my head slightly. You filed for divorce, not a trial separation. You didn't ask me to wait. You didn't even say goodbye. You just left. So don't act shocked that I didn't press pause on my life for you. She looked toward the couch, maybe expecting to see something familiar, something she could claim. But it wasn't hers anymore. Not the space. Not the version of me that once lived there. Finally, she whispered, "So that's it? You're just done?" That's when Mia stepped out again. She didn't say anything. She just walked past Darcy, placed a cup of coffee on the table beside me, and lightly touched my arm. The kind of touch that doesn't beg, doesn't prove anything. It just exists in truth. I looked back at Darcy and answered softly. I was done the moment I realized I deserved better. She stared at the coffee, the couch, the hallway, anywhere but my face. And then she nodded once, turned toward the door, and said the most ironic sentence of all. I hope you find someone who actually cares about you. She walked out, and I finally let myself breathe. But what she didn't know was that this wasn't over. Because there was still something I hadn't told her. something she left behind that was now sitting in my drawer, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. I stood there for a while after the door closed. Not because I was shaken or tempted, but because the silence felt like victory. A quiet, solid kind of peace. The kind you earn after dragging yourself through months of confusion, shame, and late night. What did I do wrong? Spirals. And for the first time in nearly a year, I didn't feel like the weaker one. I didn't feel like the man left behind. I felt like the man who survived. But that drawer, that damn drawer. After Darcy left, I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled it open like I had 100 times before. Inside, everything was neat. Too neat. Organized like a museum of who I used to be. Receipts from vacations. Her notes written on sticky pads. A concert wristband we never took off for days. But underneath all that, wrapped in a crumpled tissue like it meant nothing, was the key. Not just any key. The key to the safety box we shared. It had been missing for months, or so I thought. I'd assumed she took it when she left. I even called the bank once, asked about replacing it but never followed through. At the time, I couldn't imagine needing access to anything inside. Too many memories, too much pain. But now it burned in my palm like a secret begging to be opened. I called in sick the next morning. I didn't tell Mia where I was going. She trusted me. She didn't hover. She just kissed my cheek and told me to drive safe. That alone told me more about her character than any long speech ever could. The bank was nearly empty when I arrived. The vault manager, an older woman with soft eyes, didn't ask questions when I handed her the key. She just led me to the back, past thick steel and silence. When she left me alone in the small viewing room, I stared at the box before finally sliding it open. Inside were only 3 things. First, a sealed envelope with my name on it in Darcy's handwriting. The edges were worn like it had been handled often, maybe second-guessed, maybe even meant to be destroyed. Second, a USB drive. Third, a diamond necklace. One I had never seen before. I didn't touch the necklace. I didn't even open the envelope. My fingers went straight for the USB. Back home, I plugged it into my laptop with hands that suddenly didn't feel steady. I expected photos, maybe emails, some kind of digital breadcrumb trail to help make sense of the nonsense she left behind. But I wasn't ready for what I actually found. It was a video, one file, no title, no date. The footage was shaky, like it had been taken in secret. A hotel room, familiar decor, the same one she used to travel for work once a month. Then her voice, then his, and then something I'll never be able to unsee or unhear. It wasn't just betrayal. It was mockery. They laughed. They joked about how clueless I was. She said things I never imagined she was capable of saying. Things that made my stomach twist and my ears ring. And suddenly that necklace made sense. It wasn't hers. She bought it for him. But the most shocking part? At the very end of the clip, she looked into the camera, dead on, and said something that shook me to my core. If he ever finds this, it means I changed my mind too late. I sat there, frozen. Not because I still loved her. Not because I wanted her back. But because I finally knew who she really was. And what I did next would make her regret ever walking away. For hours I just sat there, staring at the paused video on my screen like it might change if I blinked enough times. My coffee had gone cold. My hands were cramped. But none of that mattered. Because the image of her laughing, of him smirking behind her while they talked about me like I was a running joke, was seared into my memory. It wasn't the affair itself that hurt the most. It was the way she performed her betrayal. With confidence. With pride. Like she needed it recorded just in case she ever wanted to relive the moment she threw me away. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't rage. I opened my email, attached the video, and wrote one sentence. You left this behind. No subject line. No greeting. No signature. Just cold, silent delivery. I didn't even hit send right away. I hovered for a good 10 minutes. Not because I doubted my choice, but because I wanted to remember that I had this power now. The truth. Undeniable. Unfiltered. In her own voice. And then I clicked send. Mia came home a few hours later. She could tell something was off. I guess I'm not as good at hiding things as I thought. I didn't give her details. Just said I found something I didn't expect. She didn't push. Just sat beside me, took my hand, and turned on some stupid baking show so we could sit in silence and pretend everything was normal. It was the kindest thing anyone had ever done for me. The next day, Darcy responded. Not with a call. Not with a message. She showed up again. This time, she was different. No fake smiles. No soft eyes. Her makeup was smudged, like she'd been crying for hours. Her voice cracked when she spoke. How long have you had it? I didn't move from the doorway. Does it matter? She looked at the floor. You weren't supposed to see that. It was just a moment. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. A moment? It was 42 minutes of lies and laughter at my expense. That's not a moment. That's a whole season. I was angry, she said weakly. I was lost. I didn't even remember it existed. Then why was it in the safe, Darcy? Why was it labeled? Why did you keep it? She opened her mouth to respond but couldn't. Her silence was louder than anything she might have said. That's when I knew, deep down, some part of her kept it because she thought one day she might want to remember what it felt like to destroy me. I stepped back, still holding the door open. You need to leave. But before she turned, she dropped a bomb I didn't see coming. He's threatening me. I blinked. What? The guy. The one in the video. He knows you found it. He says if I don't make it disappear, he'll leak things about you. About your job. Your mental health. Stuff I told him when you were cheating? I cut in, my voice sharper than I meant. You fed him my secrets too? She looked away again. That was the moment something shifted in me. All the sadness, the heartbreak, the shame. It burned out like a dying flame. And what replaced it wasn't anger. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. Pure, brutal clarity. I'm not saving you from the fire you set, I said calmly. But I'll make sure you don't drag me into it. And then I shut the door. But it was far from over. Because that night, I got a call from an unknown number. And when I picked up, the voice on the other end said something that chilled me to the bone. You think you're safe now, Eli? You're not. The voice on the other end was smooth, but not in a charismatic way. It was the kind of smooth that made your skin crawl, like oil spreading across water. He didn't say his name, but I didn't need him to. I recognized it. Not his voice, but the arrogance. The way he spoke, like I was just another obstacle in his day. Like he didn't even register as a villain in this story because he saw himself as untouchable. I don't know what Darcy told you, he said. But this little game of hers? It needs to stop. I leaned back in my chair, staring at my laptop screen. The video file still paused on his smug face. You've got 30 seconds. Use them well. He scoffed. You think this is a warning? I'm telling you, Eli. Take the video down, delete every copy you have, and stop dragging her into your pathetic little rebound fantasy. My blood ran cold, but I kept my voice steady. Funny. You didn't seem too worried about your reputation when you were bragging on camera about stealing another man's wife. He chuckled like I'd just proven his point. You think people care about stuff like that? Grow up. But you're a liability. Your job's fragile. You work in a regulated industry, don't you? What would happen if your company started getting anonymous tips about your emotional instability? Or maybe screenshots of certain private messages your wife once forwarded? That's when it hit me. Darcy didn't just vent to him. She gave him ammunition. Every time I'd confided in her about my panic attacks, my doubts, my struggles with burnout at work, she had handed it over like gossip to a stranger in bed. I should have hung up, should have told him to go to hell. But something in me wanted to hear more, to hear just how deep this betrayal went. Why are you doing this? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Because I thought she was smarter. I told her to keep things clean. No messy endings. No guilt trips. She was supposed to be gone and quiet. Not crying at your door and dragging me back into her spiral. So, either you shut this down, or I ruin you. Click. I sat there, heart pounding in my ears. Not out of fear. Not even out of rage. It was something different. Disbelief at how far this rabbit hole had gone. Darcy hadn't just cheated. She had conspired. Whether it started that way or not, it ended with her feeding parts of me to someone who now wanted me erased. I knew I had to act. Not with violence, not with threats. I wasn't him, but I wasn't going to stay silent either. The next morning, I made 2 calls. First, I called a lawyer. Not a divorce lawyer, that chapter was done. This was someone who specialized in digital harassment and defamation. She listened patiently, took notes, and told me something that stuck. When people show you who they are, don't argue. Just build your case. The second call was harder. I had to tell Mia. We were still new, still careful around each other's scars. But I owed her the truth. I told her about the video, the threats, the call, the man whose voice still echoed in my head like poison. She didn't walk away. Instead, she asked one question. What do you need me to do? And just like that, I realized I had something they didn't. Loyalty that wasn't bought with lies. But before I could move forward, there was one final card I hadn't played yet. The envelope Darcy left in the safety box, the one I hadn't opened. It was time. And inside was something I never expected. I opened the envelope like it might explode. My hands were cold, my mouth dry. For some reason, I expected a confession. Maybe some guilt-ridden apology, some poetic rambling about how she'd lost herself. But what I found was something far worse. Calculated, precise, intentional. It wasn't 1 letter, it was 2. The first was addressed to me. The second, sealed in a smaller envelope, was marked with a name I hadn't heard since college. Eli's mother. I read mine first. I must have gone over it 10 times, trying to understand if I was misinterpreting it. But no, Darcy's handwriting was steady. Her tone was eerily calm. It read like she'd written it weeks before, like it was always part of a plan. She started with a few lines about how she never meant to hurt me, that she'd once loved me, that she still thought deep down I was a good man. Then came the shift. But love isn't always enough, Eli. You were predictable, gentle, steady. But that made you boring. You didn't challenge me. You didn't see me anymore. Not the way he did. That's when I knew the letter wasn't an apology. It was a justification. I needed out. I didn't know how to leave without destroying you, so I let the destruction happen naturally. I let things rot. I said things I knew would wound you. I distanced myself until you couldn't recognize me, until you'd hate me enough to let me go. My stomach turned. It wasn't a letter of regret. It was a blueprint for escape. She had manufactured the emotional collapse. She made me doubt myself so she wouldn't have to feel guilty. Then the kicker. I only left the video behind because I wanted you to know the full story, in case something went wrong. If you're reading this, I guess it did. And if he came after you, I'm sorry. But you weren't innocent either. You let the silence grow between us. You chose your routines over passion. Your loyalty made you blind. And then, the final blow. I'm sorry I couldn't be your forever. Tell your mother thank you for trying to warn me about the life I was walking into. She was right. I wasn't ready for someone like you. I sat frozen. For a long time, thinking back to the night before our wedding when my mother pulled me aside. Her eyes tight with concern. She's not built for this life, Eli. She wants a story, not a steady hand. I brushed her off then. I thought she just didn't understand Darcy's spirit. Turns out, she understood her perfectly. I opened the second letter next, the one for my mom. My throat clenched halfway through reading it. Darcy had written to her, too. And it wasn't bitter. It was disturbingly respectful. As if she knew the damage she'd done but still needed to say her piece. She admitted she wasn't faithful. That she never fully intended to stay. She even thanked my mom for raising a man good enough to make me feel ashamed. I didn't know what to do with that. That night, I called my mother. I read her the letter, voice trembling. There was a long pause on the line before she said, "You're not the one who failed, Eli. You're the one who lived honestly. That's the difference." I wanted to believe her. But the next morning, I found something that made everything spiral again. Taped to my apartment door was a white envelope. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid photo of Mia at the grocery store, taken from a distance. No note, no message, just a photo. Someone wanted me to know they were watching. The photo stayed in my hands longer than I care to admit. I turned it over, half expecting some scribbled message, but there was nothing. Just that eerie silence of a threat with no voice. Mia didn't know yet. She was in the other room, humming while folding laundry, unaware that someone had tried to pierce the peace we'd built from ashes. For a moment, fear crept in. Not for myself, I was used to being targeted emotionally. But Mia? She had nothing to do with the past. She didn't deserve to be pulled into its shadow. I made one more call. Not to the police, not yet. I called the lawyer again and we discussed how to handle harassment, even veiled threats. She assured me that if anything escalated, we'd take action. But she also said something that stuck. People like that push because they think you'll flinch. Don't give them your fear. That night, I told Mia everything. Showed her the letter, the Polaroid, the video, all of it. I expected her to panic, maybe even walk, but she just sat with it, sat with me. And then she said something I'll never forget. You're not what happened to you. You're what you chose to become after. We decided to move, not because we were scared, but because we were ready. Ready for a new city, a new chapter, a life built without the ghosts of her or him or that poisoned apartment. I deleted the video, not because I forgave Darcy, but because I didn't need to keep it anymore. I had already won. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in the quiet peace of knowing I didn't let their ugliness rot me from the inside. Darcy never showed up again. Maybe she got the message. Maybe she realized her power over me had finally, truly ended. The man from the video never contacted me again either. Maybe he saw that I wasn't playing anymore. Months passed. Mia and I moved into a small house with creaky floors and too much light. We grew a little garden, started burning the pancakes every Sunday morning, and adopted the laziest dog on earth. And for once, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was just living, free, whole. Finally, thanks for staying with me through this story. If you've ever had to rebuild after someone shattered your world, I hope you know it's possible. You're not broken, just wiser. Now tell me in the comments, what moment in this story hit you the hardest? This is Reddit Confessions, where real stories remind us that healing doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispers. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own story below.